started it 6 years ago after I got fired from my last job. And I was like, if I don't give it a shot now,
Did you get fired? I didn't know you got fired. You never told me that.
Not many know this. It really is real when they talk about the housing shortage right now and the cost of living. Like, people are willing to rent a room for $300 than to get their own one-bedroom unit for $600. If you're lucky and you've got, wealthy parents like yourself, Steve, there's a
Who says my parents are wealthy?
The biggest lesson I learned at that point was I worked so hard, and obviously I wanted to make money so quick, but the biggest lesson was making money quick can be the quickest way down, because I fell for one of those scams online. There was one of those where, let us invest your money, we'll double it, we'll triple it. So I was a 17-year-old kid. I basically gave them all of that money that I'd worked from basically 14, 16, 17, gone. So that was my biggest experience.
Life lesson number one.
Exactly.
That's brutal at that age.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
Very strange. You can imagine if you're talking to a client about their home loan, you're like, by the way, do you want to invest in
just on the
this
side?
stock?
Yeah. Since I saved you money on the deposit, do you want to put that spare 20 grand into...
Everyone was like, you got to hire. But I'm like, wow, someone's salary is going to cost me this much and that.
Terrifying, isn't it? Nima, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Super excited to have you. We've been talking about it for a year, probably.
I know.
About a year. And it's good that we didn't do it before now, because look how much your business has grown in the last year. It's exponential, right?
You can almost see it was part of your plan.
It was always, I do see the future. I think more so you've got time now because you've grown and you've got other people to help you. Whereas before you and I were both very time constrained. Mm-hmm. So look, it's good to have you on. I'm going to go all over the shop with your background because I love your history. I love because obviously we've known each other for about a year, the variance in there, but there's a lot of things I don't know as well. Mm. And you said to me, there's nothing you want to talk about, so we're going to talk about everything instead. So just to kick off for the audience who's watching, describe what your business, Kermani Capital, does, and say your full name. Introduce yourself to our audience.
Okay, I'm Nima Kermani. It's a Persian name. Both my parents from Iran migrated during the revolution, but fast forward to what I do today, I run Kermani Capital. I started it 6 years ago after I got fired from my last job, and I was like, if I don't give it a shot now,
Did you get fired? I didn't know you got fired. You never told me that.
Not many know this. So I don't know if this is the right place to be sharing.
We're coming back to that. Yeah. So tell us before we come back to you getting fired, and I so want to dig down on that one. Yeah. What does Kermani Capital do?
It's basically an end-to-end solution to building wealth through property. So from where you are now to where you want to be, call it financial freedom retirement. We'll do the planning, the lending, acquiring the property, the accounting. Basically, just come to us. We handle everything, get you there. And this all stemmed from myself building a successful property portfolio. So I said, why not do it for others? Yeah.
So tell me, when you say you do everything, let's run a scenario, right? Mm-hmm. Let's say I've decided, right, I've got some spare cash, and we'll go back to how much soon, but I've got some spare cash. I feel like I need to buy some property. I've got no idea what I'm doing. I don't know the taxes. I don't understand all the deductibles, all that stuff. There's so much information out there. Mm-hmm. I can come someone like you or one of your team, and you will literally say, right, how does it go? Do you say, how much do you want to retire on? How much money have you got? How's that sort of discovery go?
And that often is the first question people ask is, I've got this much, am I ready to start? But people don't realize you don't even need anything, because so many people have so much equity already in their home. Like, they bought it maybe 5-10 years ago, it's doubled. So there's so much money we can extrapolate from that as a deposit for their next property. But what we would do is essentially we would meet with you, and you would tell us, look, I would ideally want to reach $200,000 in passive income to retire or just be financially free, live life on your terms, we like to call it. And then essentially from there, we've got a platform that shows, based on your savings, your incomes and everything, how quickly you can get there. And then basically we will map in a full end-to-end strategy. It might be acquire 2 properties this year, wait a year, then we can acquire another one, because we buy under market value. So without getting too much into details, essentially they're mainly distressed sales. So they're mortgagee possession. The bank needs to get their money back because someone's not making repayments. So they just want a quick sale. So we'll look for those types of assets. Clients can often draw up to 80% of the new value 3 months after they settle. So they can get a lot of their deposit back to go into the next property. And that's how we fast track building a portfolio. And then we set up trust and companies. That's why we have the accounting arm. So we can actually unlock borrowing hacks to borrow more money. That's how clients can get over 3-4 properties. And then obviously then we get you the loan at the appropriate lender. We've also got our own white label facility now. So we do Kermani Capital funding as well.
Okay, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's good.
It almost feels like every 6 months a new service is coming on board. And I think that's just because when things are working, people want to work with you and you figure out how to add more value. And then lastly, it's the acquiring the property. So I hope that all makes sense. There was quite a bit there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you go and find them. They don't have to find the property. You find that you source that for them.
We find them for them.
And you source it all over Australia because I'm guessing you've got things like land tax and other things. You don't want to have them all in the same state. And,
exactly. And sometimes, like, look at what Brisbane's done in the last 4 or 5 years. It's almost doubled, whereas Sydney might have only gone up 10, 20%. So I think for us, it's not just about land tax, but where's going to be the next big growth spot. So we're focusing a lot in Victoria at the moment.
Okay. And would you say that the bulk of your customers are everyday Australians, or are they wealthy high earners, or is it literally open to anyone?
Yeah, it is literally anyone, but I like to now be more specific with that so people can recognize what's the ideal client. And I think it's anyone who's a everyday professional who's got a bit of money, who wants a better future. And I'd say we like to help basically the everyday Australian.
What about, I'm just going to go a little bit off piece. I understand the whole equity thing. Lots of people have a lot of equity. That makes perfect sense to me. Mm-hmm. What about someone who is quite young, who hasn't bought their first property, who's like, I don't think I want to do that. It's going to take me so long to get the property I want in the area I want. I want to keep renting in Bondi or wherever it is. How much would they need to kick this off if they don't have any equity at all? Is there a minimum amount?
Yeah, good question. There's 2 approaches there. If you're lucky and you've got wealthy parents like yourself, Steve. Who
says my parents are wealthy?
No, I mean what your kids could maybe do with yourself.
Oh, I see where you're going with that. Right, okay.
But there's something called the guarantor option, which essentially means you don't need any money. You can secure it against your parents' property, for example. So that's one option. And then the government's brought out this scheme where you only need 5% and they can be the guarantee.
Yep. Oh, so do they guarantee? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So how it would usually work is typically you need a 20% deposit.
Yep.
Otherwise, you'd have to pay something called lender's mortgage insurance, whereas now the government said you only need 5%. We will guarantee the remaining 15% as long as you meet the eligibility. And there used to be an income cap on it, but now they've taken that. So it's really for a lot of people, but every state has a different threshold. So New South Wales, I believe, is now 1.5 million. So, if they want to go for their first home, buy $2 million property, that's not possible, but we usually advise not going that high anyway.
Yeah, that's a big first property. You probably want to live in that one. Yeah. Okay, cool. So it really is open to everyone. It's fantastic.
I used it for my first one too, about 6 years ago, for a $630,000 place in Neutral Bay. I only needed to put down $30,000, which was 5%.
Wow.
So
how many have you got now?
I got 9 now.
9?
Yeah.
All in Sydney or all over?
I know Brisbane, Melbourne, and a few in Sydney. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Now let's go back to the interesting part. You got fired. What were you doing? What was your previous job?
It's funny. That's not the only job I've gotten fired from.
Okay. Well, you know what? Before we go into that, let's go way back. Let's talk about, because you do have a really interesting history, like all Persians. Talk me through some of the moments that I think our audience will not just appreciate hearing about and enjoy hearing about, but I think it shows that you don't have to be good at everything until you find the thing that's right for you, right? So give us a little bit more of a history of Nima.
Yeah, I think a good story is I was always fascinated by money, not because of just this idea of money, but what it could do. I saw my parents come to the country as immigrants, not have much money, had to go to public school. Then I really wanted to go to private school. So halfway through, they would change.
Yep.
So I got to see that difference in what money could do. Mm-hmm. And I think from basically the age of like 13, 14, I became quite fascinated on how I can improve my life even more, even just like they've done for themselves and us. So I became a paperboy at, the age of 13. And it's kind of funny. It started off as just doing, I grew up in Greenwich. So I was doing a few of the suburbs, and by after a year, I was a 14-year-old boy doing the whole suburb. I was like the paper boy for the whole suburb.
How long did that take?
Wasn't doing any of my homework.
No, I was going to say,
my parents were like, what is this kid?
Greenwich is pretty big. Like,
I know. It
must have been a good couple of hours a day.
It would have been at least 2-3 full days. I spent one day, it was advertising paper, so I'd spend one day putting them all together. And then my mum was very nice. She loved walking, so she'd help me.
Mums do that.
Yeah, exactly. So
I washed cars when I was 13. That's what I did. I started going around the neighborhood washing cars. I loved that. I loved doing that.
There's something at that point, even making $20 you're on top of the world, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Cool. So Paperboy, you didn't get fired from that, I'm assuming.
No, I did actually get fired from that.
Why?
I guess I was taking up too much I could chew.
Right.
And then
you were letting the standards drop, taking on too much work.
The standards were definitely
should have employed some 10-year-olds.
I know. Should have got my dad involved.
Yeah, maybe.
But I lost all of that too, like, because I started thinking, okay, I'm going to put all of this towards a house deposit. I didn't spend any of this money.
You were thinking at that age about a house deposit?
Yeah, literally.
Really?
I wasn't spending any of this money.
It's extraordinary.
Not a house deposit, but like, let's put it towards something that will further appreciate. Because I've worked so many years, saved up all this money. I think by the time I was 16, 17, there was like $10,000.
Yep.
So, not a lot of, a lot of money for a kid that age. And I think that was the biggest lesson I learned at that point was I worked so hard and obviously I wanted to make money so quick, but the biggest lesson was making money quick can be the quickest way down because I fell for one of those scams online. There was one of those where let us invest your money, we'll double it, we'll triple it. So I was a 17-year-old kid. I basically gave them all of that money that I'd worked from basically 14 to 16, 17, gone. So that was my biggest experience.
Life lesson number one.
Exactly.
That's brutal at that age. Yeah. That's brutal.
And I told myself at the time, if that's the most I ever lose, then that can be the greatest lesson at
100%.
16,
Is that the most you've ever lost?
No, unfortunately.
No, of course not.
And I think that's like, it was a few years ago, it was a lot more than that. And I don't know, I guess I'm trying to say, well, maybe this is the new level to unlock.
Well, let's not get into how we've all lost money. That's just a depressing conversation. All right, continue on. So, Paperboy, did you go to uni?
I did, but I dropped out. Right. But now I'm also doing my MBA at UNSW.
Why did you drop out? I didn't. I got in and didn't go, so I didn't even go and drop out. I'd never even made it to day one. But what made you drop out?
I think I didn't even want to go in the first place.
Well, that was a good reason.
I was interviewing for jobs throughout high school,
right?
Because again, I just knew that I wanted to get to financial freedom. I'd read a few books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, so
That's a great book.
Yeah, it becomes pretty apparent to you that it's not about how much you make; it's about how much you can save, invest, and make it work for you. So I found I started interviewing jobs, wanted to make money. I ended up working at one of the biggest brokerages 2 days outside of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Mortgage broking. And
2 days. Jeez, that's impressive.
Yeah, because I was interviewing in high school. They didn't know. They tried to fire. That was another job that tried to fire me a week in. They're like, we thought you were 21 and that because that Persian boy had a beard at that age.
What's there? Did you have a beard at school?
Yeah. I mean, well, they made us shave it, but throughout that time between trials and HC, there's 6 weeks, I got to grow it out again, So they were like, oh, okay, he presents well, he's older. So they wanted me to actually start the following week, but that was when HSC. So I put the start date as 5th of November at the time, 2016.
Yep.
So yeah, that's when I knew. I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. It's a lending, it's property. I don't even want to go to university. But then I ended up getting into business at UTS, which is a good degree. And my parents, it's very big in our culture to be educated.
Yep.
I almost feel like if you don't have a degree, you're nothing. So I think a big part was pressure getting in. And I thought, why don't I balance both? So that's when it started full-time work and then full-time university. So I was working from 9 to 5, then going to the campus from 6 to 9. So you can see why it didn't work out for too long.
Yeah, I can see. That's not sustainable for 4 years.
No. And I had to kind of choose which was more important to me. So I thought at the time I'd find something I love, I'm passionate about.
And this was the same job you got, right, at the beginning. You were still there.
Yeah. And I was like, let this be a catalyst to do even better at it, Right.
So they tried to fire you because they found out your age. How did you get out of that?
Well, I was just like, sit me through a test, like anything anyone else knows here. Asked them. So math questions, lending questions, what's a variable, what's a fixed rate, what's an LVR.
They couldn't fail you.
And they couldn't, no.
I love that. So how long were you in that for?
I was in there for about 2 years.
Okay.
I was there, left and came back.
Yep.
But I was there basically.
Dare I ask why?
I guess I was very ambitious. I was trying to work 2 jobs at once, and that, we'll just put it that way, wasn't necessarily working out.
So this is a thing now, right? Because of remote working since COVID, there are so many people doing 2 jobs without the other person knowing. And it's become, it's not so prevalent now, but for a couple of years after COVID, there were so many people pretending to work full-time in 2 jobs but doing them both at home. So you would have been that person. Luckily, it was pre-COVID, so you couldn't do it.
Exactly.
But yeah. Okay, so and what was the other job you were trying to do at the same time?
That was commercial broking. So because
you're doing residential here and commercial here.
Commercial there, and that's what they didn't like.
No shit.
And obviously now looking back, I'm like, I would have hated to have hired myself as well, because
so do
hard to keep you in one place.
You make sure everyone's 5 days in your office that works for you?
Exactly.
So you went back, and then obviously what made you move on from that? Was another opportunity popped up, or again, I'm guessing it's your driving ambition, but yeah.
Yeah, it was during the Royal Commission. So a lot of brokers got, there was a lot of issues at the time.
Yep.
And it got very hard, and no one was wanting to do a home loan during the Royal Commission because we thought the broking industry might be abolished. So
did I.
And at that time, I just knew I loved finance. I was very interested in, how finance worked and everything. So I was lucky enough to get a job then in a stockbroking firm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when things even got better for me because…
How? Before you go into it, how? Because there's a million mortgage brokers who would love to be a stockbroker. That is not an easy transition.
I think something I've always done, even from that first job, was just apply for thousands of jobs. I think people…
I hate people like you.
A lot of people talk to me now. They're like, oh, this job caption looks good. Should I apply? And in my head, I'm like, I'll apply for 100. I'll be happy if one even wants to do a phone call with me. You know what I mean? So it was just this numbers game of really putting myself out there. And I was like, surely one person will meet with me. And then that one person might give me a crack, So,
and that happened.
And it was a lot like that, yeah.
Cool. So you went and became a stockbroker.
Yeah, and now looking back, I mean, hiring myself, drive is everything. And if someone's willing to reach out to you, show you they're going to work the hours, work the extra hours. In the field like stockbroking, which is predominantly sales, like the hardest worker and the most persistent goes the furthest.
I think in most industries, but yeah. So you didn't like stockbroking?
No, I was really good at it.
So why did you go back?
So why did I go back to stockbroking?
No. So why did you not stay in stockbroking?
So
you're obviously back in finance.
Yeah, so I didn't want to… I grew up the lending book, like my clients.
Yep.
So when I went to stockbroking, again, that was something else I was still doing on the side.
Right.
Even though by the second time, I was the best person on the sales desk.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I found my calling because mortgage broking is very relationship, slow process admin.
Mm-hmm.
Stockbroking is your ability to get on the phone, talk to someone and convince them to take action.
Yep.
And I realized that was what I was best. I was better at high pace, quick turnaround. I didn't have the patience to talk to someone about this today and we do something in a week. The ability that in 5 minutes, it's up to me whether they buy or sell something. I was like, that's when I found my calling. But why that one unfortunately ended was I was doing my mortgage broking on the side. So again, they found out about that, didn't like it.
This is a pattern.
There's a pattern here. And then eventually the business starts. And that's when I was doing it all myself and no one could tell me, oh, we don't like you doing mortgage broking and stockbroking.
So you got fired from stockbroking and that's when you started Kermani.
Then I went to… I ran the Australian sales team for a fintech called QuickFee. It's like a buy now, pay later for lawyers and accountants. So I was basically… They had a sales team here. I was running the sales operation in Australia. They were okay with me doing the lending on the side.
So you actually mentioned it this time because you thought maybe I should bring it up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that one, I guess it was just during COVID, I was much more passionate about it. And I think they understood that my time I'd rather spend there and broke off that way.
Okay. And then from there?
And then that became Kermani Capital, which was meant to be just the mortgage broking. But then my friend allowed me to become a corporate authorized rep of a stockbroking license.
I remember.
So
you did tell me this.
So then I remember he was raising capital for an IPO. And I remember getting on the phone, 15 minutes, the client said, I'll invest $10,000. I was like, wow, that was that easy. So then I incorporated stockbroking. It was funny. It was a mortgage broking, stockbroking firm, Kermani Capital, when it started.
Bizarre.
Very strange. You can imagine if you're talking to a client about their home loan, you're like, by the way, do you want to invest in
just on the side?
Oh.
Yeah. Since I saved you money on the deposit, do you want to put that spare 20 grand into,
yeah. And it's funny, we covered all that, but that's only the start of where the business was. Apart with that, I traveled to America with it and then came back and got rid of the whole stockbroking arm, sold that to someone else, and just now it's predominantly focusing on the property, which we spoke about today, which is the lending all the way to the acquisition. The equity side was too volatile,
Well, think about being in it now. which is madness.
Yeah.
Okay. And now obviously you're a Pillars member, which is how we first met. And there is a rumor at Pillars about you.
This is going to be good.
Don't look at anyone else. Just forget the crew. No one can help you here. And it might not be true. But I thought this would be the perfect time to bring it up.
Bring it up. Let's go. Let's see.
Did you used to be a model? Oh. I heard that you did some modeling at some periods throughout your life when you weren't doing a million other finance
Maybe that
things.
was one of the other things that I was trying to make money from when I was
So you did a little bit of
18.
modeling.
Yeah.
See, well, you didn't bring that up. I think it's too modest. I think that's, like you said, you did do this earlier. So, I thought I should bring it up.
No, you got me all
So it's true. That's true. Oh, well, that's good. Well, at least these rumors that go around Pillars is true. That's good to know.
I wonder who's saying this. It's interesting.
I couldn't possibly tell you.
I wonder where they're stalking me. I mean,
it's
good to know I've got people looking me up. I mean, that's
apparently so. You must be causing a stir. I don't know who started it. I wouldn't want to comment, but interesting.
Yeah. Okay, don't Google my name for anyone watching. Unless you do want to reduce
it. You've grown up in an era of online. You see, when I was 20s, there was no online, right? So nothing ever I did is online, but everything, your whole life's there.
I know.
Yeah, I feel sorry for my children on that as well. Okay. I guess I'm intrigued to know, look, it's a really interesting journey. I love the drive. And that's obviously what's pushed you. I love the fact that you've had side hustles all the way along. And obviously that's also what's pushed you, but it's also been your downfall. But I guess it hasn't, because look where you've ended up, and you can only end up where you are by going on the journey you went on, right? In all the things that you've done, I guess, where was the aha moment around what you're doing now? Because you said the way you described it to me earlier is interesting. For me, I think founders become their most successful when they start to think about their customer as opposed to themselves. So when you're an employee, you tend to think about your own earnings if you're in sales roles, right? It's all about your commission. However, as a business owner, as you said, you were successful at it. Why not teach other people to do it? So you flipped it, right? It wasn't so much about, okay, this is how much money I can make. This is me becoming financially free. It's like, how can I help other people do that? And that, I think, is probably the secret to your success, because you're creating a service now for other people as opposed to just making money. And there's a difference in the way that you come across, in your mindset. When do you think that moment hit you?
And you're 100% right. That is essentially what changed things. Especially younger days, it was like, how can I make the most money? How can I make the most money? But then I remember I was actually talking to you, and you said one thing that, when you'd spoken to billionaires, one common thing they told you is their success is their ability to how many others they've brought up with them. And I think you were one of the first people that said something like that, and it really sat with me. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, there you go. Gosh, you're making me all shine. It's just such an emotional episode. I'm glad.
You're exactly right. And I think that is 100% right. If you're able to make other people wealthy, you in the process will also become wealthier. So it was less about how do I make myself the most wealthiest person, more about how can I make my clients as wealthy as possible. So the more and more I did that, and the more value I added to them, and try to take as much knowledge I used to make my portfolio to help them grow theirs. And that's essentially where we are today.
Cool. Well, you've slipped very quickly and easily into the role of a founder. And being a founder is very different to being a salesperson, because there's so much more to running a business than there is about just selling the product and even helping your customers. How have you found that transition? Because I've obviously watched you go through this journey, and you seem to be very comfortable in it. And a lot of founders struggle with it. It takes them a while to take on the responsibility of employees, and ultimately you're responsible for their, as we've just talked about, their earnings, but also their families and all those other things and your customers. So as a founder, you have a lot of responsibility and you have a lot of things to do. You've always been good at a lot of things to do. That's evident from the stories you just told us. But how did you find that transition? Was it seamless for you? Did you struggle with it? Have you tried to do a lot of learning about it? Because I think there's a lot of people going to go through that journey in the next few years. As AI removes a lot of jobs, I think a lot of people will start their own things.
Yeah, exactly. It's very hard as well when you start your own business, because suddenly you're dealing with your money.
Yeah.
I mean, up until an employee, it's never yours. It's investors, it's shareholders. So with starting my own business and obviously being so frugal, it was always so hard. It was like everyone was like, you got to hire. But I'm like, wow, someone's salary is going to cost me this much and that.
Terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So for so long, I was doing everything myself. And I think the reason things became really good the last few years is as soon as I was bring someone into the business, suddenly I saw growth. Brought someone else, suddenly brought growth. And I think, but what was the big reason for that was because I was alone for so long. So I had built the brand, built the infrastructure, really understood the business inside out. So when someone did start, it allowed me to do so. So sometimes people spend before they have. And I think a big part of my success was really waiting till everything was ready or even beyond ready. And then I would bring in the people to
product market fit. You found a really solid product market fit and you made it repeatable, basically, by someone else. Someone else could do what you do. But that's the key, right? That's the key to any success of a founder. If someone can't do what you do, you can't really grow your business. And I think you probably did that subconsciously. Maybe.
Exactly.
I don't know.
We'll see.
And what's been the easiest part for you? Like, there's always things that shock you when you start a business, and there's always things that surprise you. You go, oh my God, I thought that was going to be so much harder. Even starting a business, right? That first jump of starting a business for most people is terrifying. And once they've done it, they're like, it wasn't that big a deal at all. What other things have you experienced as a founder that maybe have come across that way?
Yeah, it's a great question you asked that. It's as the saying says, like, there's a lot of things we stress about today, but do you think in 5-10 years back, when you look back, is stressful at all? And that in itself should help release some tension. So I think looking back now, a lot of things potentially are easy, but they aren't easy in the moment. So I guess, what can I say? I guess a big one is probably back to the employee thing. Like at the time when they start, you're not sure, like, do I keep them? Do I let go of them? Are they reaching this goal? Am I not doing a good enough job? But I think the biggest thing that I found is if you give the right people patience, you've got to give them at least 6-month window. You'd be surprised between the 6 and 12 months how much they prove that you should have kept them and given them a chance. And I think
interesting
that's been a big one for me. Yeah.
What about the view of yourself? Do you see yourself as a leader or a manager? Because they're quite different things.
Yeah, I think it's now that I have the team, the biggest they are, and we're all in one room.
Yep.
I think I'm learning very quickly. I'm more of a leader, not a manager. I think sometimes the way I try to manage people is maybe like how a previous manager used to manage me. Like, it's just like, I think management requires a high level of experience, knowing people who have doing it before. So I definitely think on the leadership side, I've been a lot more valuable because I've always had a vision, always found a way through, always been able to pick up ideas in that. So I feel like I would side with that one.
You got to get the right people. I think you need every business needs a leader, right? But sometimes they also need a manager. I'm a terrible manager. But I think if you hire the right people and you're leading through example, then the management can be let off a little because they're self-driven. They have to be ambitious and driven like you. I think if you have non-ambitious driven people, which will happen when you get to a scale, right? You can't have a business of 50 people who are all like that. It's too many A-types. But I think right now, and if you have a business that big, you'll have managers then. But yeah, I think you're right. So you're not what I would call unambitious. You're quite the opposite. What's the future? What's the plans? What do you double down on what you're doing? Do you look at a new product line? You know, these things go through your head. You've always been someone that's thinking, trying too many things at the same time. Where are you at with your head right now?
Yeah, it's someone actually, I met with a financial planner today. He asked me this question, so I feel like he's prepped me now.
You're ready to go.
So I feel like next would be to set up a fund.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people that work transactionally. There's not a lot of people that do a fund. And the reason I want to do that is I want to put my own money in that fund, show that I put my money where my mouth is. And instead of trying to, convince people buy this asset, they just put in the fund and then we basically go out and do the buy side ourselves.
Yeah.
So
and I think that opens it up to a lot more people as well. And in their eyes, it de-risks it for them because they don't have to worry about owning a property, I guess.
Exactly.
Do you need different licenses and things for that, or have you got all of that? I mean, you've You've done so many different things. Surely you've got all the licenses.
So we don't do the stockbroking anymore, but yes, I do have access to AFSL and all that, and I know the right people for that. So when the time comes, I'll definitely do so. I do just want to grow the track record a little bit more. So the day we do start the fund, it's not, a fund with $5 or $10 million. Hopefully we can, have over $50 to $100 million in the fund. So,
and talk to me about how that works. Like, I understand obviously venture capital and all that private equity, that world that I'm in. Property funds, I understand that they obviously are a way of coming into a smaller part without actually buying a property and seeing. But do you pay out dividends on them? How? Because obviously with a venture capital fund, you're looking at exit or a liquidation event. But with property, do you pay a dividend based off the profits? Do you sometimes sell properties and then pay? How's that structure work?
It'll be literally like both. Just like a property grows in value and pays an income, we would look to do both.
Yep.
We would look for like a more high growth play. So instead of clients, it wouldn't be like commercial assets that have really good yields that we would just be trying to pay out. Any leftover capital, we'll be trying to do further acquisitions to really grow it.
Yeah.
So I think it would be more like there would be a unit price, and over time that would grow, and then they could sell it. So I think
so you'd have a lock-in period, so to speak, and if you sold during that period, there would be a penalty. But after a certain period, you'd be able to sell based off.
Exactly.
And who would buy that? Would you sell that to? I'm just interested by this. Would you sell that to another retail investor, or would you be the guys that buy that off them, or how was?
Yeah, we try to stay away from retail. I think that's
okay.
That's the advice we've always got, and from my experience, it's best. Deal with people that are sophisticated and maybe have a minimum, of a $50,000 or $100,000 investment size.
Yep.
And the people would be, Pillars members, but also potentially institutional investors as we grow a track record. So just probably that would be more focused on the professional high net worth.
Cool. And you're going to continue to grow your own portfolio?
Yes, I would. Hopefully in a 6 months' time, I have a completely different number to give you.
Do you have a number in your head where you go, you know what, that's just enough? If you probably don't want 20,000 properties, for example. I mean, you may, but that seems crazy. Is there something that you've always thought it'd be really good if I had X amount?
Yeah, I've always said once I reach a $10 million portfolio.
Right, as in the value of the properties?
The value of the properties.
Right.
So right now it's at 7.
Yeah.
So I think that's good, because then at that point, let's say the Australian average is 7%, then that's $700,000 you make on that portfolio untaxed, and it's compounding with leverage. So I feel like once you get there and you can maintain it, then I'm pretty set. So I was trying to get to that before the next 6 months. So let's see if I can do that.
And do you aim to have them positively, negatively, or neutrally geared, or does it not matter?
No, that's our big thing. We focus on neutral positive, because as you can imagine, you can't have $7 million debt at negative geared. You'd be bleeding out.
You'd be in trouble.
Yeah. So that's one of the things we do differently. Again, is we do positively geared. So we focus on like block of units where the cash flow is strong. Or it's very popular at the moment, is you buy a house and rent the rooms to individuals.
Really?
Because of the house, you'd be surprised. I mean, you and I wouldn't be renting them, but
I didn't know. Like essentially, what was student accommodation when I was growing up? That was in London. Obviously, you get that a lot, and in New York. But I've never seen that here.
Yeah, you'd be shocked. Even in a suburb where it's families, a 4-bedroom house, you now can rent the rooms out like this, because it really is real when they talk about the housing shortage right now and the cost of living. Like, people are willing to rent a room for $300 than to get their own 1-bedroom unit for $600.
That's so interesting. You know what? That would explain why there's so many houses with 15 Uber Eats bikes parked out, because they're all living there, right? And they're parking their transport out the front. I do wonder. I sometimes go, there's a lot of Uber Eats going on in there, or everyone there works there.
Which house are you seeing this in?
Well, I'm not. I don't think we should discuss that in a public forum. But yeah, I'm surprised that's a big thing. So people are buying a house and then renting out the rooms, and probably getting a greater return than if they rented the house out as a single unit, right?
Exactly. And that's what over the 6 months we've done a lot of. And, because typically people said, units have good cash flow, houses don't. But with this, you're almost building a kind of a unit within your house.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's some houses you could, that's crazy.
Yeah.
How interesting. So, okay, cool. Now, I'm bringing in a new thing. You're the first person to experience it.
Love
so
it.
Give It a Nudge is obviously a show about people giving it a nudge, which I think is fair to say you have done. At the end of this, I always want to give them an opportunity to ask me something, which is not something we've ever done before. And why I've chosen you, knowing you so well, is madness, because you could ask me anything.
I know.
And you already asked me lots of questions.
I think my brain's going everywhere.
You ask me awkward questions every time I see you.
I'm always want to negotiate. Can I do 2?
No negotiating today. No, that's the one thing we're not doing today. This is my show. So you've got an opportunity to ask me anything you like, and I will answer it, because whenever I go on a podcast, I always say there's nothing off limits. Is there anything you feel you want to ask me right now?
Look, you might hate me for asking this. What's the hardest lesson you've gone through that you might not necessarily have shared, and a lot of people might not know, that's turned you to become, the successful person you are today?
I think I've probably shared everything. I've never been one to hold anything back. I don't think there's anything I haven't shared. I think the hardest lesson is, it took me a long time to admit my weaknesses, a long time. And I'm always someone that doesn't want to make the same mistake twice. but I have made the same mistake maybe 5 or 6 times on a number of occasions. So you could say I'm a slow learner. And I don't think it's that I'm a slow learner. I think it's that for a long time, and not now, but for a long time, particularly in my 30s and maybe early 40s, my ego was too big. Now, you might not have thought that meeting me because I don't think I come across that way, but internally my ego was too big. I would literally have an internal turmoil telling me that I wasn't wrong about something when I really was, and I probably knew I was, but I would force myself to convince myself I wasn't to make myself feel better. That's probably the biggest thing and that's come with age. Now I've hit my wise 50s.
I'm sad you said age. I was hoping I could learn that lesson.
Well, that's me. I'm hoping everyone learns it a lot quicker. Maybe by talking about it now, we've just saved a whole bunch of people a decade of internal turmoil. But yeah, I would think that's it. I think it's very easy. It's almost like an addiction. Like if you think about addicts, right, whether it's alcohol or cigarettes or vaping or any of those things, people convince themselves that it's okay. They do. They have this turmoil in their head. They know they shouldn't be doing these things, but then they convince themselves it's okay. Particularly alcoholics, I think, are the best at that. I think that was what's going on with myself. My ego was convincing myself to make myself feel better that I wasn't making these mistakes over and over again. So, yeah, there you go.
Well, it takes a lot to admit that. So
were you expecting that?
No, it was good, man. It was good.
Mate, thank you so much for coming on. I'm really glad we got your story out. I'm glad everyone's literally online right now saying modeling for Nima and looking up all your pictures. Hopefully we'll see them all over the place.
Send me your favorite one, everyone.
Yeah, please just put them in, just send us in the chat. Just send me everyone's favorite one. We'll pass them on. And I really can't wait to see. I think what you've done is incredible. And I've said this to you. I'm so impressed with what you've done in the last couple of years. And I think the fund's a great idea. So I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
And when you do the fund, we'll get you back on.
Definitely. Looking forward to it.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you, mate.